Hey guys, how's it going, Companion? So there has been a discovery in the League of Explorers, and it has to do with the Discover mechanic. So, just the first card they announced, actually the Jeweled Scarab at BlizzCon, and when we first saw some of these Discover cards, like, yeah, that's a pretty cool mechanic, but it seems like there's a little bit more depth involved than we had otherwise seen. Now, this was first found by one of the users on Reddit, Metronome B, shout out, found that there was some weird stuff going on. He kept seeing some class cards, and it seemed like they had an uneven distribution relative to the neutral cards as the options came up when he was playing these discovery cards, or the discover cards. So today this was actually confirmed by Ben Brode. He mentioned that's indeed a class card is 4 times more likely to be discovered. Sorry, we didn't make that more clear during the announcement. And this little shift has some very interesting repercussions. The cards are perceived very differently in some cases. Some cards are dramatically better in some situations and dramatically worse in other situations as a result of this new knowledge. So even a card as simple as Jeweled Scarab, a lot of people thought this card, including myself, was just basically whatever. It's okay because guaranteeing a 3-drop is basically what it seemed to do, but the Discover mechanic has a little bit of an added bonus where it can give you more options than would otherwise be in your deck. And this idea is really pushed by the fact that you can somewhat reliably get specific cards that otherwise you wouldn't run in your deck. So for instance, Jeweled Scarab, if you just look at all the 3-drops across all the classes, there's some classes that are basically like whatever, like Druid is like whatever. The class cards for Druid are not really that strong, not really a big deal. But if you look at like the 3-drops for Hunter, they're all pretty damn good. And because each of those is going to have 4 times the weight of a neutral common, playing a Jeweled Scarab in a Hunter deck is going to be considerably better than playing it in a Druid deck. Well, also because it's a beast and Hunters like those type of cards. Similar case in Paladin. Paladin has very strong 3-drops. There's actually very few bad Paladin 3-drops in the game. And Shaman just has a ton of flexibility in the 3-drop slot. You can get board clears. Actually, both board clears in Shaman are in the 3-drop slot. You can also get just some weird cards. You can get stuff like Hex if you need another one of those. So in those classes, it seemed like it's really quite good. Most classes I would rate on the neutral level because although they had some powerful 3-drops, they had some really crap 3-drops in the mix, which also show up a lot of the time. But one class in particular seemed really bad, and it was Warrior. The 3-drops in Warrior just seemed really poor, except I guess if you're playing Arena when just playing a Frothing on turn 3 is actually game-winning in some situations. But, that's basically what you can expect. But when it comes to more specific Discover mechanics, it gets into a case where you can clearly see the advantage. So another Discover card, I'll just go through all of them today so you guys can see what the impact is. Tomb Spider. Now, of course, there are Discover cards that have nothing to do with class cards or have everything to do with class cards, where, some of them just bring out spells or hero powers, and in that case, it doesn't actually matter because really the interesting part is comparing the restrictions that allow some class options and seeing what the situation is when those options are weighted. So in the Tomb Spider's case, if you consider Druid, for instance, Druids only have 2 beasts. It might seem like they have a lot more beasts, but most of them are transform or choose effects. Really, only 2 beasts they have are Savage Combatant and Malorn. And those 2 are actually pretty damn good. So, even though it's only 2 beasts, how many neutral beasts are there? And in these more restrictive scenarios, you can get a better idea what you can expect. So, what it means is, you have 25 neutral beasts, but even though you only have 2 Druid beasts, each of those 2 Druid beasts has a weight of 4. So you have 8 in the bucket for Druid and 25 for neutral. So really you're looking at 1 in 4 chance for each of the 3 options to be a Druid beast, which is a pretty damn good card. So, if you really think about this, you can very consistently get some really powerful cards off of these Discover mechanics. And it doesn't seem that way when you first look at the options. So, this change makes Tomb Spider maybe even an auto-include in a Beast Druid deck, because not only are you getting, more beasts for your beast synergistic cards, you're getting really good beasts or situational neutral beasts that might otherwise be very powerful in a given scenario. Also, it makes Tomb Spider an extremely powerful arena card for Druid. You can further this concept to GorillaBot A3. Of course, another one not released, but he's a mech, and if you do the Druid thing again, you got 28 neutral mechs, and you got 2 Druid mechs, but again, those 2 Druid mechs are going to come up like a quarter of the time on each selection, meaning you're going to get almost a Druid mech every single time, and you're looking at Anodized Robocub and Mechbearcat, and Mechbearcat, like an arena, is like game winning. So, if you have a few mechs, GorillaBot might be otherwise much better than it would seem. Museum Curator doesn't have too much of an impact because the only Death Rattle Priest card is a Dark Cultist. With 29 other neutrals involved, it's still mostly the same card, but in my opinion, this is one of the better ones because so many of these Death Rattle cards are very powerful. But Raven Idol is one of the most interesting ones, where you get to pick a minion or a spell. Obviously, the spell scenario hasn't really changed because, well, there are no neutral spells to compare it to. So even though each class spell gets 4 times the probability, well, there's nothing to really... They're all increased by the same amount, so the distribution is exactly the same for the spells. But for minions, it makes it so, most Druid minions are actually really powerful. That's kind of the strength of Druid. And Raven Idol, I already thought was going to be a really powerful card, quite strongly constructed, and absolutely broken in Arena. And now it's just going to be even more broken, because you're going to get the more powerful cards, the Druid cards, more often than you are the neutral cards. And not only is this more broken in terms of just card quality, but it also ups the chance that you'd get legendary cards, because each class right now has 3 creature minion legendaries, and they're all pretty good in Druid's case. Some classes have some really crappy ones. So you have quite a high chance to get some of those, and legendaries in Arena just almost automatically win you the game if it's a semi-close one. So that's really interesting. But one card that people have got to test quite a bit, which is why this kind of came out at all, is Dark Peddler. And Dark Peddler, I originally thought it was kind of bad. I compared it to like Razorfin Hunter, but it's like a lot better than that because of the distribution adjustments. So there's 29 neutral 1 cost cards, and there's a few class cards. You have Corruption, you have Moral Coil, you have Power Overwhelming, you have Soulfire, Blood Imp, Flame Imp, and Voidwalker. Most of those are really powerful, but when you really see how the distribution works, like I did a little bit of calculation, it makes it so like half the time for each selection you're going to get a Warlock card, even though the distribution is like 4-1, right? It's amazing. And that actually, because of those cards, for every single selection in the Discover mechanic, you have like a 15 to 20% chance to get a card that does 4 damage, either Power Overwhelm or Soulfire. So, like, probably like half the time you play this card, you're going to get an option that gives you 4 extra damage, which makes Dark Peddler a really good late game card. There's very few early game cards that are good in the late game. Dark Peddler is one of them. It's not only good on turn 2, but it's good on turn 3, and it's good late game. So the sheer flexibility makes this card totally awesome. And I'm really excited to see what implications will come from this card being in Arena, as well as some of the others which are yet to come in the next few weeks. But overall, it's been such a pleasure to see more depth into an already very interesting expansion. And, well, as the weeks roll out, I'm sure the excitement will further increase. So, for now, that's it. Hopefully you guys have been informed about the Discover mechanics and can maybe make some better decisions in deck building and Arena card choices, and maybe squeeze in a few more wins from that. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys tomorrow.